What's up, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Dan, and welcome to the Book Report, the show where we enter the world of literature and discuss books that are interesting. Maybe interesting to me, maybe you might find it interesting. But let's get into it. So for this review, I wanted to talk about a book that's really been in the news, and that's only because it's of the political implications, and that is 1984 by George Orwell. Now, 1984 is a set in a post-World War II dystopian society where, like, you're always watched. Like you know how in Britain they have those cameras everywhere. Or you see, like, this is like taken it to the extreme. Like there are cameras in your house, and now technically there is cameras in me because I'm talking to you, but this is voluntarily. Everyone's mandatory. They have you know how your laptop has a camera, like your TV in this. Anyway, the story's set, at least is set in Oceania. Now, Oceania is a communist empire which is made up of the Americas, the British Isles, Australia, New Zealand, and sub-equatorial Africa. The main area that we're looking at in the story is in Britain, although they don't call it Britain anymore. They call it like Landing Pad 1 or something like that. So the world is set up in there's this perpetual war going on between these three major superpowers: Oceania, which is the English-speaking part of the world; Eurasia, which is like all of Europe, and what is modern-day Russia. And you have East Asia, which is China, Japan, and basically East Asia and the Pacific Isles. There are some contested areas in Africa and India, but that's about it. So anyway, we'll begin learning through this stuff through the eyes of Winston Smith. Now, Winston Smith is a character who works for the government. He's what they refer to as an outer party. He's kind of a middle-class man. So Winston works for this part of the government called the Ministry of Truth. Now, there's a whole lot of ironies in these, Ministry of Truth, of course, censor stuff. That's their job. They're responsible. Like, for instance, there's a scene when Winston is going through a news article, and there was a guy who was a party member who recently committed treason, and he needed to find a way to get rid of it because it said like Big Brother had been with him. In the story, by the way, Big Brother is the figure or the symbol of the government. He's like, and it always says Big Brother's always watching. He's the kind of chief figurehead of the INGSOT, which is the government philosophy. Which is short for English socialism. This is like extreme communist. This is not like Swedish socialism. This is like Stalin or Maoist ones. So the story follows Winston. He goes through his day, kind of realizing that this kind of fucked up world that he lives in. He also begins questioning, because he's in this, he's in the position to see the inner workings of the bullshittery that's the government does, and he begins doing, well, maybe all this stuff isn't what it seems to be. He ends up actually meeting up with someone who's in another division of his ministry called Julia. Now, they start having a secret relationship. Originally, they explained that for them, like Winston had been married before, but his wife was very much a strong party supporter. We're doing this for the party. We're reproducing for the kind of thing. Whereas with Julie, he's like, this is someone younger and they kind of show interesting is that the Ministry of Truth rewrites history. And because the thing that they say, he who controls the past controls the future, and he who controls the future controls the present. But they're talking, and Julie's like, yeah, I remember reading in the books that the party invented the airplane. And he's like no, that existed before during the war, because it was the Oceania didn't come into being until like I think the 1950s. So, the so he's like, when I was young, all they were claiming credit for was creating the helicopter. Which, like, he says, I wonder how many generations it'd be before they started claiming the creation of the internal combustion engine. So we see that. We also see the fact like Winston has gone. He's middle. We also learned that there's the other classes seem to not be as restricted. The proles, as they call them, the proletariat, are a lot more free to do what they want. They have a certain amount of, but the party, see them as kind of like, oh, they're intellectually inferior. They're but once it's kind of like, maybe maybe they're an unexpected strength. Maybe the proles, because they're actually a majority of the population. So Winston he's dating Julia, and he meets up with a guy by the name of O'Brien. Now, O'Brien is an inner party member. He's basically the equivalent of a aristocrat. And he confides in him that he's actually in contact with Goldstein. Goldstein in the story is this one of the original revolutionaries of being sought of creating Oceania, but supposedly fell out of favor with the with the government. So he's become kind of a symbol of like what he's become the Guy Fawkes, or the boogeyman for the people, despite the fact he's talking about, try freedom of speech. Like, people become so convinced of the goodness of the government that any kind of expanded freedoms seems scary. So when it's talking to O'Brien, and O'Brien's like, yeah, I'm with Goldstein. Yeah, here's a book on the stuff. Which we later find out that O'Brien works for the Thought Police. Now, this is actually an interesting thing, because if anybody's been following, social justice versus, anti-social justice, or, or any kind of like thought control that comes with religion, thought policing is the idea that crime starts in here. You're thinking rebellious thoughts is a crime itself. It's kind of Old Testament. If you read like the Ten Commandments, it's like, coveting your neighbor, that's a thought crime. So he starts reading this stuff. He starts talking with Brian, and eventually you find out there's a twist. So if you don't want the rest of the book, the ending spoiled, and just end the video now. All right, you good? What are you saying? Good. So the book, kind of near the end, happens is Winston gets disappeared, and he's being interrogated. Like having rats put on him and all that stuff. And you find out that O'Brien is actually a net, in a way. His job is to basically go through and find those potential rebels, those who've come to realize the bullshittery, or and to basically either convince them to move up in rank, or to basically beat them down and basically weaken them. Now, it's interesting, because in the story he tells Winston, he says, I'm not going to kill you, because if I killed you, you'd become a martyr, and I'll be like, aha, I see, the government's back. So we're going to release you. So they beat him down, they weaken him, and they do the same thing to Julia. They basically make him so bad that they're sexually repulsed to each other. So he's got PTSD. And there's a scene at the end where he's in a bar. He's like, yes, 2 + 2 = 5, because that was the whole thing. Basically, there's like, what's 2 + 2? 2 + 2 = 4. No, equals. If you've ever seen the episode of Star Trek Next Generation where Picard gets captured by the Cardassians, it's very much the same kind of thing.
There are 4 lights. There are 5 lights. How many do you see now?
beating basically trying to break him, and they do break him, and it's really kind of sad because he just gets so sucking. Now there are two adaptations to my knowledge of the book. One is a 1954 BBC adaptation, which has starring Peter Cushing. For those you don't know, Peter Cushing played Van Helsing in the film with Christopher Lee, and he also was Grand Moff Tarkin in Star Wars Episode 4. So the guy who was ordering later. Anyway, I recommend again. Check this book out. It's kind of depressing, but it's a very good educational read. I might get around, by the way, to doing Animal Farm, which is another George Orwell one. It talks about the dark sides of government. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching. Check out my other videos like this and subscribe. My name is Dan, and you have yourself a wonderful day.